Hello students, I hope you all are doing good. Welcome to the daily news analysis. We'll be hereby discussing the important news articles of 16th of February 2022. I'm your educator Prithviraj Singh. Let us begin the news articles for the day. Now on the first page of the Hindu newspaper, you had an article about anti-lynching bills which were being passed by 4 states, and they have not yet been cleared by either the governor or they are being reserved by the governor to the president, right? So they are still hanging, right? So the lynching bills which were being passed by the 4 states, right? So they may ask you that which among the following states had passed the anti-lynching bill. Now before I go into that, lynching is a targeted violence by a mob, right? When a mob actually, go ahead with the violence in a targeted manner, that is called as lynching, right? The 4 states which have passed the anti-lynching bills were Rajasthan, Jharkhand, West Bengal and Manipur. Now out of the 4, Manipur passed it in the year 2018. Then in 2019, the bills were being passed by Rajasthan Vidhan Sabha as well as West Bengal Vidhan Sabha. And recently, in the last year, Jharkhand Vidhan Sabha also passed the anti-lynching bill, right? Now, as I said that the bills are still hanging. They are either they are reserved with the governor or the governor has reserved the bill for the president. That means they have not become an act, right? Now, let us understand what is lynching. Now, as I said, guys, lynching is an act of targeted violence by a large group of people, right? Where a large group of people takes the law in their hands. Possibly they are upset because of many factors like cow vigilantes, attacking some people, especially from minority class, correct? So therefore it is an act of targeted violence by a large group of people. Very importantly, guys, the government, central government is saying that we cannot declare it as a crime. Why? Because it does not come under IPC. So Indian Penal Code of 1860 do not have any mention of lynching, right? So very important takeaway, lynching is not defined as a crime under IPC, Indian Penal Code, right? So the mob, they go something wrong and they take the law in their own hands, correct? Now NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau data of 27 suggests that there have been many cases of lynching, correct? But no action has been taken or the report has been grounded. See in the news article, in 2017, the National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, collected data on mob lynching, hate crime and cow vigilantism, right? So the cases of cow vigilantism, hate crime, mob lynching, right? But the figures were never published, right? So it means that the data is still being grounded by the authorities and the figures have not yet been published. National Crime Records Bureau 2017, correct? The government says that it is not a crime under IPC, Indian Penal Code, correct? Now let us understand why the violence takes place or why mob lynching takes place. As I said that it is a result of many factors like witch hunts in many villages. Even the barbaric caste system is also one of the reasons behind mob lynching. And these days we have found that we are seeing that there are a lot of cow vigilantes, right? Those who portray themselves as the protectors of cow and and they kill the people or they do the lynching against some minority classes. Well, we must understand that cow is a sacred animal for Hindus, right? It is a mother-like creature for Hindus, but but cow mulching is a source of income for minority Muslims, correct? So therefore the cow vigilantes attack the Muslim community people, right? Although guys, the director principles of state policy do talk about the ban on the slaughtering of the cattle, but the government, possibly when it doesn't come up with a law, then the people take the law in their hands and then they attack the minority communities in the country, right? So these are the basic reasons for the mob lynching in India, right? Now, as I say that there is no law being mentioned for mob lynching. There is no provision for mob lynching in IPC. However, we must understand that the perpetrators of crime, because fair enough that a particular community is is upset because of some actions from other community, but they must not take law in their hands, correct? And they are being held under various provisions of IPC, like murder, section 299 of IPC. Culpable homicide amounting to murder is section 299 of IPC. Culpable homicide not amounting to murder is section 300 IPC. And I presume that all the CLAT students know about the sections relating to culpable homicide and murder, right? Section 299 and section 300. Similarly, rioting. So you know that rioting is also being held under one of the sections. Similarly, unlawful assembly, section 144, section 144. Punishment for murder is your section 302. Rioting is section 146 IPC, correct? So in Indian Penal Code, you have Dhara 144, Dhara 144, right? It talks about unlawful assembly. Similarly, you add 2, you'll get section 146, which talks about rioting. Then punishment for murder is section 302 IPC, right? And culpable homicide not amounting to murder is 300, and culpable homicide amounting to murder is section 299, right? So these are the sections of the IPC which are being used to actually prove their conviction, right? Or they are being arrested based on these sections of IPC. At the same time, we also have section 223 or section 223A of CRPC, and it is possible, it says that it is possible to punish 2 or more accused committing the same offense in the course of the same transaction, right? Because in the mob lynching, there are many people involved together, right? So it becomes very difficult to point out or to identify that who is the real culprit. Are you getting? So therefore, you have section 223 clause A of CRPC, which can be applied over such cases, and the police officials do apply section 223 of CRPC, right? Which says that it is possible to punish 2 or more, right? So greater than equal to 2 people can be punished who are accused committing the same offense, right, in the course of same transaction, correct? I hope you are getting my point. At the same time, many constitutional provisions like Article 14, which talks about right to equality, is also being violated. At the same time, Article 15, which prohibits any discrimination based on race, religion, caste, sex, and place of origin, is also being violated, right? Even guys, in 2018, the Supreme Court said that Parliament must make lynching a separate offense, but still the government has not made it as an offense, and it is still due. However, the central government is saying that we are looking at the overhaul of the IPC. That means they are looking at the complete overhaul or complete change or reform of the IPC, because IPC, you all know, came in the year 1860, right? So it is a British law. It was passed by the British authorities. So therefore, central government is saying that we are in the process of reforming the IPC. I hope it is clear. Let us move to the next news article. Now, amid the hijab controversy, where some Muslim girls were being denied entry into the PUC, pre-university colleges in Udupi district of Karnataka. Now, this news has, been circulating across the country, and there are many places where the students, especially from the Muslim community, are protesting against their denial of entry, right? Now, behind this backdrop, an international organization called Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, right? They have said that India is not taking enough action over hijab, whereas Indian ambassador has said that it is OIC has a communal mindset, and time and again it has been proven, it has been seen that OIC always displays such communal mentality. Now, OIC has called upon the United Nations and the Human Rights Council to take necessary measures following report of Muslim students being prevented from wearing hijab in Karnataka, right? Now, we must understand what is OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Now, it is in terms of its composition, it's second largest organization. It is second largest organization after United Nations, right? Because it has 57 member states, right? There are 57 countries which are the part of OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and they are majorly Islamic states, right? They talk about the interest of the Muslims across the world, and mind you, India has the second largest Muslim population in the world, right? And then also India is not being included in OIC, right? I say it again, India has second largest Muslim population in the world, then also India is not among 57 member states of OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation. So this shows their biased attitude, and that is the reason why the ambassador is Indian embassy is saying that it has a communal mindset, right? So India is not a member of OIC, as I just said. So the examiner might ask you that which among the following statement is correct about OIC? India is a member of OIC? No, right? So India is not a member of OIC. And second, it is the second largest group after United Nations. It has 57 states, right? I hope it is clear. So this is a map of the OIC countries. You can see there are 57 member states. Now the member states of OIC in dark green, right? So the dark green countries, as you can see in the map, all the African countries, right? They are the members of OIC. Whereas light green are not the members, they are just the observer states, right? So they are just the observer states. For example, Russia. Russia is not the member of OIC. It has observer status. Observer state, right? It is being invited into the proceedings, but without the right to vote, etc. It just has observer status, right? So most of the North African countries, as you can see, are the members of OIC. Then Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, etc., Yemen, they all are also the part of OIC. Similarly, our favorite neighbor, Pakistan, even your Bangladesh, then Iran, Afghanistan, and the Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, they all are members of the OIC, correct? So this is how it goes, and even some Southeast Asian nations like Indonesia, etc., are also the members of OIC, correct? So you have to remember that 57 member states are there, and mind you, Russia is not its member. It has observer status, and rightly so, it is being given in the light green color. I hope it is clear. Moving to the next slide, India OIC relations. Now guys, OIC was founded, you know, in it was there in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. It was set up, it has its headquarters at Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, right? And as I said, that although India has world's second largest Muslims, right, and although it was being formally invited, but as its member, but it was ejected from 1969 inaugural session, when Pakistan actually mechanized the summit, right? So OIC has had a hostile relation with India, and so this is the basic background of the OIC countries and India's relation with OIC, right? Now let us move to the next news article of today. Now, in Hindu newspaper, you had the article about SVAMITVA scheme, right? SVAMITVA scheme, and it reads, India to make digital maps of all villages, right? So Indian central government, under its geospatial policy, which is yet to be unveiled, right? So India would be using the technology of drone, space technology, right? At the same time, geospatial systems would be used, right? So there would be a trinity of geospatial system, drones, and the space sector to actually map the villages in our country, right? So India would be coming up with digital maps of all the villages, right? So there would be survey done by the drones, by the space satellites, and this is being done under a scheme called a SVAMITVA scheme, right? Now SVAMITVA scheme is being abbreviated as Survey of Villages and Mapping with Improvised Technology in Village Areas, right? So it is Survey of Villages and mapping with improvised technology and in village areas, right? So it is SVAMITVA scheme, right, which seeks to map the land parcels using drone technology and would provide the record of rights to those who own property. Now the government is saying that with SVAMITVA scheme, every villager would be having the digital record of their possession, their property, right? And they would be coming with something. So as we have Aadhaar card, similarly property cards would be issued under SVAMITVA scheme as under and they would be a record of their rights, correct? And very, very important, guys, and I expect a question on this, that it is being run under Ministry of Panchayat or Panchayat Raj Ministry. So they generally ask question that which ministry runs any particular scheme. So it is Panchayati Raj Ministry, correct, which has started SVAMITVA scheme, correct? Now, so as far as I was explaining about the geospatial policy, India is yet to complete its geospatial policy, and it would help in not only mapping of the villages but also mapping of the forest area, mapping of the wetlands, right? A disaster, it would help us in disaster management, maintaining land records, water distribution, and very importantly property taxation, a very important source of revenue for the government, property taxation, right? So the property taxation data would also be more streamlined when you have all the villages being mapped by drones and satellites under SVAMITVA scheme, right? The government also says that Indian geospatial market in 2020 is 23,345 crore rupees, and it would increase to 36,300 crore rupees by the year 2025, right? So very important focus of the government, and government is saying that out of the total villages, I mean the drone survey for 1,08,337 villages have already been done. So it is not that the government would launch it now. The data is already being prepared for around 1 lakh villages, right? And the government has issued the property cards to around 27,000 villages, right? So government is actually fulfilling its promise of under SVAMITVA portal. I hope it is understood and clear. Now, so this is something which I was just explaining you. This is how mapping would help in actually dispute redressal mechanism, because there are many disputes related to land. So SVAMITVA scheme would help by maintaining the by issuing the property cards. The disputes would be properly redressed, right? Now it is under the Ministry of Panchayati Raj. However, so the nodal ministry is Ministry of Panchayati Raj. Very, very important. It is a completely centrally sponsored scheme, central sponsored scheme, CSS. And however, the scheme is implemented, SVAMITVA scheme is implemented in collaboration with Ministry of Panchayati Raj, State Revenue Department, as every state has a revenue department. For example, Rajasthan has revenue department at Ajmer, right? State Panchayati Raj Department and the Survey of India, right? So these are the agencies which are involved in the implementation of this scheme, right? So it would reduce property related disputes. It would determine the property tax and all the things that I talked about, the geospatial policy. I hope it is clear. Let us move to the next news article on the screen. Exports have risen by 25%. Now it's a good news coming in. Exports have risen by 25%, and now they are $34.5 billion, right? Guys, we all know that when a country exports, it earns in dollar, right? For example, let's say Indian manufacturer or Indian exporter is selling something in America, right? So on his sale, he would get money in dollars, right? So when you're exporting something, you will earn in dollars. And when you're importing something from, let's say, America, you're importing something, you have to pay in dollars, right? So when the government, you know, imports crude oil or any commodity, you know, from foreign country, it has to pay in dollars, right? And crude oil is the major commodity which is being imported, right? So therefore, so when you are exporting, you are earning in dollars, right? So therefore, the government always want to increase its exports. Why? Because it would increase its dollars. And this reserve in dollar is called as foreign exchange reserve, forex, foreign exchange reserve, right? So the government want to increase its exports, right, at the in comparison to imports, right? And when the exports are greater than imports, you have something called as trade surplus. And when exports are less than import, you have trade deficit. Right. So government always wish to increase its export to have trade surplus, right? And when you're exporting more, you'll earn in dollars and your foreign exchange reserves would also increase, right? And these foreign exchange reserves would help you in purchasing commodities from international market, right? And this foreign exchange reserve is used when you are importing commodities in your country, correct? So this is how the government, you know, actually do all the acts to push the exports, to increase the exports, right? Now, very important, in January, the data of January 2022 this year has shown that the exports have risen to 25%, right? Have not risen to, it has risen by. So they have risen by 25%, and today the exports of January 2022 stands as $34.5 billion. Now, the article reads that India's merchandise exports, merchandise means trade in goods and services, right? So India's merchandise exports have touched $34.5 billion in January 2022, 25.3% higher than a year ago, right? Now it is higher as compared to the same month, January month of last year, right? Now in this sense, the country's trade deficit has reduced to a 5-month low of $17.4 billion, right? As I said, that when the exports would increase, right, your trade deficit would decrease, right? Because you would be in trade surplus. I mean, at least if you are not in trade surplus, your trade deficit would definitely decrease, right? Deficit kam hoga, right? Ghata kam hoga. What is deficit? The difference between export and the imports, right? If exports are less than the imports, you are in deficit. That means the money is flowing out of the country. Are you getting? Capital outflow, right? So trade deficit, right? So trade deficit has lowered, and it is a 5-month low of $17.5 billion, correct? Now there have also been seen that the gold imports have also fell sharply, correct? Gold imports have fell sharply in January to just $2.4 billion, right? 40.5% lower than that in the corresponding month in 2021, right? Now, so this decline in the yellow metal or gold is being considered as the biggest factor, you know, behind India's import bill dropping, right? Now, even the exports in the coffee and petroleum products have increased, have in fact doubled, and even we are doing good at cotton yarn and, you know, handloom products. So you can see, guys, the trade deficit has, you know, has increased to $17.42 billion, right? So it has decreased. Why? Because the exports have increased to $34.5 billion. I hope it is clear. So we are clear with the terms trade deficit, trade surplus, exports, imports, foreign exchange reserve, and why there is increase in the exports. So the data, as you can see on the screen, tells the same story that I have mentioned. Now, so this is all about the description. Now coming to the next news article on the screen. Guys, you can see that and we, as I say always, that we at ClatPrep don't limit ourselves to just one newspaper. We cover many articles from different newspapers, right? There are two prominent newspapers which we follow, Indian Express and the Hindu, right? And I'm not limiting myself just to the two newspapers, but I am also covering important news articles from some journals and magazines like Down to Earth. So I found a news article, a news in Down to Earth magazine, which talks about environmental conservation. So there are 5 experts which would be leaving for Namibia, a African country, on February 17 to finalize the cheetah translocation. Now guys, cheetah has been a extinct species in India. It's no more. We don't find cheetah in India. It's been declared as extinct, right, from the surveys. We know that we did had cheetah population during the medieval times, but sadly it was under the game reserves. It was being hunted by the nobility, by the noble class, and along with the British officials, right? So we don't have cheetah right now, and it has been declared as extinct since 1952. In India we don't have cheetah. It has been declared as extinct, right? But India do have the conducive environment, you know, which may support the revival of cheetah again. So Indian government is trying to get Asiatic cheetahs from Iran, right? It did try to get Asiatic cheetahs from Iran, but Iran refused it, right? And in fact it said that there are only 12 Asiatic cheetahs left in the world, right? So now the Indian government is thinking of, not thinking, it is a project, although that it would be, the cheetahs would be sourced mainly from South Africa and Namibia, right? So there are 2 locations which have been demarcated, which have been selected: South Africa and Namibia, both African countries, correct? And then the cheetahs would be translocated into a national park in Madhya Pradesh called as Kuna Palpur National Park. Very, very important, guys. Kuna Palpur National Park, and very, very important, and there is very high probability of it being asked in the exam. So they may ask you that in which national park they would be translocated. So the answer would be Kuno Palpur National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Shiopur and Morena districts, right? So this is all about the translocation of cheetah. As you can see, guys, cheetah has been declared in Appendix 1 in CITES, which is actually talks about the trade in the endangered species or wildlife species, right? It is also considered as vulnerable on the IUCN red list of threatened species, right? So they may ask you that which among the following statements is correct about cheetah. So very, very important, it is vulnerable. It is under vulnerable category of IUCN, right? Now the challenges that the government is thinking if they introduce cheetah is, number one, their encounter with leopard, right? We know that in India we have huge population of leopards, and it has been seen that there are encounters between cheetah and leopard, right? And leopard generally is able to overtake cheetah, you know, it kills leopard, it kills cheetah, right? So therefore there are fear that a conflict may, you know, take place between leopard and cheetah, and thereby we losing the cheetah species, right? So that is the reason why we have selected 2 regions, South Africa and Namibia. Now it has been seen that cheetahs in South Africa and Namibia have, you know, survived or sustained the conflict with leopards, right? As ever been meant that 13 cheetahs have been carefully selected, 10 from South Africa and 3 from Namibia, right? So we would be translocating 13 cheetahs, right? 10 from South Africa and 3 from Namibia, all of whom have survived with leopards in the past, right? So that is the reason why we feel that the forest department feels that they may sustain the conflict with leopard. I hope it is clear. A very important news article, guys. Moving to the next news. And guys, this news is from Indian Express. As I said that we don't limit to one newspaper. We are covering important articles from Indian Express also. There have been news with regard to microwave weapons induce Hawana Syndrome, right? Now, especially the diplomats, the foreign ambassadors of America being posted in various regions in the world, especially Cuba, China, and Hawana, have experienced a syndrome which imparts your hearing. You feel ill after hearing strange sounds, right? So there are strange sounds being heard, experiencing odd physical sensations, and then it results into severe headaches, fatigue, dizziness, and sleep problems, even hearing loss. And this is called as Hawana Syndrome, right? So this information is in the background of microwave weapons, so-called microwave weapons. Guys, in order to understand that, we must understand the spectrum. Now, I'm just giving you a So I'll just explain you the spectrum, and I'm giving you a mnemonic. X-rays, ultraviolet rays, violet rays, sorry, visible light spectrum, which has all the 7 colors, Vibgyor, infrared waves. I'm talking about all the electromagnetic waves, microwaves, and radio waves. Now these are being arranged in this order in terms of their wavelength. The more you go towards the radio waves, the wavelength would increase, right? And we know that wavelength is inversely proportional to frequency. That means X-rays have the highest frequency and it has the least wavelength. I'll rephrase myself. X-rays have the highest frequency and when you go from X-rays to radio waves, the wavelength would increase because of the reason that frequency is inversely proportional to lambda. Lambda is wavelength. More the frequency, less the wavelength. Wavelength is the distance which is being traveled by a wave in one vibration. Correct. So if it is a one vibration, this is the distance which is being traveled in a wave, sign plus, sign minus. It is being referred as lambda, right? So more the frequency, less the wavelength, right? So that means when you go from X-rays to radio waves, the wavelength would increase, but it would be reverse when you go from radio waves to X-rays, right? Now in this sense, it is very clear that microwaves has very high wavelength, right? And X-rays have very high frequency maximum for X-rays and wavelength maximum for radio waves, wavelength maximum, correct? That is the reason why X-rays are being used in identifying any fracture in the bone, etc. Because of their high frequency, they are able to penetrate in the flesh and thereby giving an image of the bone, right? Now microwaves have very high wavelength, although less than radio waves, and that is the reason That is the reason why the diplomats were actually feeling hearing losses. They were experiencing some odd physical sensations, even sleep problems, right? And this is called as Hawana Syndrome, right? So they may ask you that which among the following is correct with regard to Hawana Syndrome. So it is because of the microwaves, right? So the places like Cuba, China and Havana, are being said to build microwave weapons, right? I hope it is clear, right? So microwave weapons are supposed to be a type of direct energy weapons, right? And microwaves can knock out electronic gadgets, Wi-Fi and even drones. Very, very important, guys. Exposure to very high level of microwaves can cause a painful burn in human beings, right? Now, guys, we are done with the important news article and coming to the editorial page of the newspapers. So these were the two important news articles of today's the Hindu newspaper, 16th of February, setting right the focal point of Jammu Kashmir tribal politics, and the second talks about the importance of caste data. Let us start with the explanation of the same. Now, guys, this is the article in today's Hindu in editorial page, where the author says that because you all know that a new Delimitation Commission has been constituted for demarcating the electoral territorial constituencies or boundaries in the state of Jammu and Kashmir post the reorganization of the state into Union Territory in the year 2019. Now, very importantly, a Delimitation Commission has increased the seats of the Jammu, because Jammu Kashmir is a union territory with state legislative assembly. That means there would be Vidhan Sabha in Jammu and Kashmir, right? And in order to, because it is now union territory, so we have to demarcate the electoral boundaries, correct? And for that, the government had constituted Delimitation Commission for Jammu Kashmir, right? And the Delimitation Commission has proposed that there would be an increase of 7 seats. There would be an increase of 7 seats in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, let us assess the data. Now, the interim report has proposed an increase of 6 seats in Jammu Kashmir, right? So out of the 7, 6 would be increased in Jammu province, and 1 would be in Kashmir, right? And one of the salient features of the report is the proposed reservation of 9 seats for STs, right? So out of the total seats, 9 seats are being reserved for ST. That is a very, very important development, guys, and this is something which is really very appreciable, because of the reason that there were no seats reserved for scheduled tribe category people in the state of Jammu and Kashmir when it was a state, right? So therefore it is a very important move when 9 seats are being reserved for ST community. So it is the first time that the seats have been reserved for the ST community in the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. The commission has also proposed reserving 7 seats for SC, right? So 7 seats would be reserved for scheduled caste. However, it is not nothing new, because there were already seats reserved for scheduled caste community people, right, in the Vidhan Sabha of erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir state. Now we know, guys, that Article 332, I'll write here, Article 322 gives the state the power, to reserve the seats for scheduled tribe and scheduled caste in state legislative assembly, right? I repeat again, Article 332, my bad, 332. So Article 332 gives the state the right to reserve the seats for SC and ST in Vidhan Sabhas, in state legislative assemblies, right? If I ask you that which article empowers the parliament, to reserve the seats for SC, ST, so it is Article 300, right? 330, my bad. So two articles less than 332, correct. I am writing it again, Article 330, right? Article 330 empowers the parliament to reserve the seat for SC and ST in parliament. Similarly, Article 332 empowers the state assemblies, state legislative assemblies to reserve the seat for SC, ST, correct. Now, the denial of the constitutionally guaranteed reservation under 332, post 1991, when 4 communities, Gujjars, Bakerwals, Gadis and Sippis, were granted ST status, is a pointer to the harsh reality that discrimination has largely been deliberate, right? So when Jammu Kashmir State Vidhan Sabha didn't reserve any seat for scheduled tribe category, it was a clear violation of Article 332, right? And it shows that it was deliberate. And I hope you mean what I say by this, correct? So in this sense, it is a positive move. The valley-based parties were never in favor of political reservation, and those Jammu-based were against the forest right. So it was always in a deadlock. Why? Because the Jammu-based politicians were against the Forest Rights Act. Now, Forest Rights Act gives the rights to the tribal communities, and they were, being passed in the year 2006, Forest Rights Act, FRA, right? So Jammu-based politicians were against the Forest Rights Act being given to the tribals, whereas the Kashmir Valley-based political parties were not in favor of the political reservation because of their vested interests, right? So therefore, this issue was always, in deadlock, and it never, was seen, right, happening. Now, they may ask you the question, guys, that which among the following are the tribal communities in Jammu and Kashmir? So they are Bakerwals, Gadis, Sippis and Gujjars. However, Gujjars in other parts of the country are being demarcated as from OBC community, but here they are from tribal community, right? And they have the highest population in the tribals living in the Jammu Kashmir, correct? So I repeat again, Gujjars, Bakerwals, Gadis and Sippis are the tribal communities, and they're majorly engaged in some occupations like ship rearing, mountaineering and those things, right? So now this is the article which says that the reality is that more than 68% of the ST population lies outside these districts, right? So 3 districts that the government has identified for the seats to be reserved for ST population based on 2011 census is Anantnag, Ganderbal and Bandipur, right? However, it's being seen that 68% of the ST population is living outside these districts, right? So there is a mismatch, and so the article talks about the same. Let us well into the article with the understanding of the Delimitation Commission. So as I said, guys, the 6 seats, these details I have already shared. So there are in total 7 seats would be increased, 6 in Jammu and 1 in Kashmir. One of the salient features of the report is the proposed reservation for 9 seats for ST, which has never been there, right? For the first time, the seats have been reserved for ST community in the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. You can see, guys, now let us discuss about some some facts about Delimitation Commission, and I strongly expect a question to be asked on Delimitation Commission. The government has constituted a Delimitation Commission to redraw Lok Sabha and Assembly constituencies of Union Territory of Jammu Kashmir and the northeastern states of Assam, Arunachal, Manipur and Nagaland, right? Guys, we all know that from a state you have seats reserved for Lok Sabha as well as seats reserved for for its Vidhan Sabha or state legislative assembly. For example, in Rajasthan we have 200 MLAs or 200 seats in Vidhan Sabha, Rajasthan Vidhan Sabha, and from Rajasthan 25 seats go to Lok Sabha, correct, because based on the population. Similarly, if I compare it with UP, which is the most populous state, Lok Sabha, it has around 82 MPs or 82 seats, correct. As far as its Vidhan Sabha is concerned, it has more than around 400 seats, right, of which the elections are to be held soon, right. So in this sense, because Jammu Kashmir was being reorganized and it is now a union territory with the Vidhan Sabha, so therefore a new Delimitation Commission has to be formed so that the seats from the Jammu Kashmir SLA is also being determined, plus how many seats come from to Lok Sabha from Jammu and Kashmir would also be determined. Now, very importantly, the Delimitation Commission for Jammu and Kashmir is being headed by retired Supreme Court Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai. Very, very important fact, guys. I expect a question on this. So Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai is the retired Supreme Court judge, and he is now heading the Delimitation Commission of Jammu and Kashmir. I hope it is clear. Now, Jammu Kashmir experienced the last delimitation exercise in the year 1995, guys, post 1995, and this was based on 1991 census data. Post 1995, they never conducted any delimitation exercise. It has often been argued that the delimitation exercise was held back deliberately to ensure greater representation of Kashmir in the Legislative Assembly and Parliament rather than Jammu area, right? Because we know that Kashmir has more Muslim community members as compared to Jammu. Jammu is where Hindu majority groups are found, right? So therefore, it has been argued that it has been done deliberately, right? I hope it is clear. Now, Delimitation Commission establishments, right? Now, guys, Delimitation Commission, it demarcates the electoral boundaries of any state, correct. For example, if I take the case of Rajasthan, we know that Rajasthan State Assembly has 200 MLAs. Now they are equally divided based on the population, right? We know, and the population census data that the states use is 2001 census, right? Udaipur has has definitely 8 Vidhan Sabha segments. Jaipur has around 12 Vidhan Sabha segments, and it is based on the population, right? If I talk about the seats coming to Lok Sabha, there are 25 seats which come from Rajasthan to Lok Sabha. It is again based on population. Udaipur, for every 30 lakh population, because the population of Udaipur as a district is 30 lakh, so over 30 lakh population you would be having 1 MP, right? Similarly, Jaipur, which has around 50 lakh population or around 60 lakh population, has 2 MPs, right? So there is a principle of uniformity, which is being followed in deciding the number of seats, right? So guys, Delimitation Commission fixes the limit or the boundaries of the territorial constituencies, and very important, guys, it is being appointed by the president. Very important. And when I say it is being appointed by the president, I mean that any appointment by the president is actually the appointment of the prime minister, right? Because president works on the advice of the aid and advice of the prime minister, who is the head of the council of ministers, right? Now, if I talk about the constitutional basis of Delimitation Commission, Article 82 provides that the parliament can enact a Delimitation Commission Act after every census, right? So Article 82 provides that the parliament enact a Delimitation Commission Act after every census, right? So you have to be careful about the article. Similarly, Article 170 provides the division of state into territorial constituencies as per Delimitation Act after every census, right? So it provides a division of a state into territorial constituencies as per Delimitation Act, right? So we are clear with two articles, 82 and 170. Once the act enacted by the parliament is in force, the union government sets up a Delimitation Commission, right? The first delimitation exercise was carried out by the president with the help of the election commission for the year 1950-51, because the first election took place in the year 1951 from October 1951 till February 1952, right? In this sense, the first Delimitation Commission Act was enacted in the year 1952. As far as its composition is concerned, it is usually composed of the retired Supreme Court judge, chief election commissioner, and respective state election commissioners. I hope it is clear. Now, 42nd, and I have a very strong feeling of the question being asked on these lines. Now guys, the government, in order to discourage the population explosion, right, and increase the population stabilizing mechanisms, the government tries to freeze the seats, so that, because otherwise every state would be trying to increase its population to have more representation in Lok Sabha. Are you getting? So therefore the acts actually freezes the population based on the census. So 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976 have frozen the allocation of seats in Lok Sabha till the year 2000 based on 1971 census. So my point is that in Lok Sabha today you have 543 seats, right? The maximum capacity is 552, right? Now these 543 seats are based on 1971 population census, right? And it is the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 which has taken 1971 census as its base, and it has reserved the seat into the, it has frozen the seats into the Lok Sabha based on 1971 census, right? So we have 543 seats, right? Now as far as the seats to Vidhan Sabhas or the state legislative assemblies are concerned, we must understand that 84th Amendment Act of 2001 extended this ban on readjustment for another 25 years, right? So the seats which were being frozen till 2000 have been further extended for another 25 years, right? And this has been coming from the 84th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2001, right? So that means up till 2026 there would be no change in the Lok Sabha seats, right? So up till 2026 there will be no change in the Lok Sabha seats, right? And all the Lok Sabha seats are being frozen till 2026 based on 84th Amendment Act of 2001, right? And the population base is 1971, right? Although 2026 is very near, it is about to come, it's only 4 years to go, right? So the government had to start the delimitation exercise for the whole country, right? So that the new data based on the population comes, and possibly we may have more seats in the Lok Sabha because the population would increase, right? So I hope we are clear with 84th Amendment and 42nd Amendment. So 42nd Amendment have frozen the seats, did froze the seats in the Lok Sabha based on 1971 census up till 2000, right? So the census is still same, but the seats are being frozen till 2026, year 2026, as per 84th Amendment Act 2001, right? Now the 84th Amendment Act of 2001 has also empowered the government to undertake readjustment and rationalization of territorial constituencies in states on the basis of population of 1991 census, right? Now, as far as the Vidhan Sabha seats are concerned, we know, guys, that today in Rajasthan Vidhan Sabha has 200 MLAs or 200 seats. Now this was earlier based on 1991 census as per 84th Amendment Act. The same Amendment Act changed the census base for states to 1991, right? Again an amendment was been done. 87th Amendment Act of 2003. It has provided for the readjustment of the seats as per 2001 census, right? So the seats in Vidhan Sabha are being reserved, are being decided as per 2001 census till 2026. That is something which is clear, right? So I'll repeat again, guys. The Lok Sabha seats that you know is 543 are being frozen up till 2026, right? And seats are based on 1971 population census as per 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, right? As far as the Vidhan Sabha seats are concerned, they take 2001 population census in allocating the seats. So if the Rajasthan Vidhan Sabha has 200 seats, it is based on 2001 census. If Lok Sabha has 543 seats, it is based on 1971 census, right? Now this 2001 census has come by 87th Amendment Act of 2003, and this 543 or this 1971 census has come by 42nd Amendment Act 1976. I hope it is clear. Let us move to some other details about Delimitation Commission. It has been set up, guys, 4 times. So it has been only 4 times the Delimitation Commission have been set up: 1952, 63, 73, and directly in 2002, right? So that means between 73 till 2002 there was no population Delimitation Commission, right? Under the acts of 1952, Delimitation Commission Act, 62, 72, and 2002, right? As you can see the data here which I have mentioned, right? There was no Delimitation Commission after 1981 and 1991 census, right? So this is something which you have to keep in mind. There was no Delimitation Commission after 1981 and 1991 census. So it has been set only 4 times, correct? In 52, 63, 73, and 2002, right? So it has to be very, very clear. Now, guys, about the article which I just mentioned, that the newly constituted Delimitation Commission, which is being, as I said, headed by Justice Ranjan Prakash Desai, has decided that 7 seats would be added into the Jammu Kashmir Vidhan Sabha, and right, total, as I just mentioned earlier, 7 seats would be added. 6 would come from Jammu province and 1 would come from Kashmir province, right? And one of the very important features which we discuss is 9 seats reserved for scheduled tribe category, which was never earlier, right? So as you can see, the commission has proposed reserving 7 seats for scheduled caste, which is something which was already there. But the best part is that it has reserved 9 seats, right, for the tribal community from Gujar, Bakerwal, Gadis and Sippis, right? And at the same time, the Forest Rights Act of 2006 would also apply to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, right? So the article which I have just explained is all the things are mentioned here, right? So it is the political mobilization of scheduled tribes, right? It and presents a united front and ensure tribal issues. But we all know, guys, that reservation has not powered the benefits which it was intended, right? So therefore it is not about reservation of the seats, because we do have reservation of seats for SC and ST in Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabhas, but still the empowerment is not happening. They are still living in they are still destitute, and they are still, you know, underprivileged. So still lot to do, and just having reservation may not serve the purpose, right? Because constitutional provisions are just a means to achieve an end, right? And the end is the social transformation, right? And the constitutional provisions are just means to achieve that end, right? So we must understand that the seats in Vidhan Sabha, I'm writing it again, the SC/ST reservation in the Vidhan Sabhas are based on Article 332, Vidhan Sabha SC/ST reservation, and the reservation in Lok Sabha for SC/ST is based on Article 330, right? So this is something which you have to keep in mind. So the things that I've just mentioned, right? I hope it is clear. Moving to the next news article, it talks about the importance of caste-based data, right? And you can see, guys, here the author talks about affirmative action and whether the affirmative action has served its purpose. Now, in order to explain this, let me clarify some details about the affirmative action. Now, guys, in order to explain affirmative action, I'll just draw a line of 100-meter race. And in this 100-meter race, I'll place two candidates, elephant and cheetah. If I ask the race to start, who would win the race? Obviously, the world knows that cheetah would win the race. Is it justice? Definitely not. Is it equality? Yes, it may be equality, because you are placing all on the same starting line, and this entails the rule of law, because rule of law, a British concept, says that all people be treated equally, and all are equal in the eyes of law. Be you a president or the PN, the law would apply equally to all, right? All are equal in the eyes of law, right? That means when you place every person on the same starting line, that is called as equality. But is it serving the justice? No, it is not just. So what will you do? You do one thing, place elephant somewhere here at 50 meters. At 50 meters. And then ask the race to start. So cheetah is at 0 meters, and now elephant is at 50 meters. Now it is a barabari ki takkar, right? Now it is justice. Now it is justice, and now it is something called as equity, right? So that means you have given a 50 meters push to elephant, right? And this push by the state, so that equity is ensured and justice is prevailed, is called as affirmative action. That means, guys, the state practices discrimination. This is a discrimination, right? Because you are placing elephant 50 meters ahead of cheetah. The state practices discrimination in order to eliminate discrimination in the society, right? Because we all know that cheetah and elephant are not same, right? And in order to eliminate this discrimination in the society, the state would practice discrimination by placing elephant 50 meters ahead of cheetah so as to ensure equity and justice in the society. And this discrimination, or this positive discrimination, practiced by the state in order to eliminate discrimination in the society, is called as affirmative action, right? And the examples of affirmative actions can be many. For example, reservation. Because the government felt that the societies are inherently unequal, and you know what, who are cheetahs and elephants in the society. So the state started practicing discrimination in order to eliminate discrimination in the society in the form of reservation. Quotas for girls, quotas for widows, divorcees, quotas for sports person, right? Elderly quota, right? Affirmative action is a tool to eliminate, any injustice in the society, and it is also being seen and practiced in countries, Western modern countries like America and Great Britain, right? So I hope we are clear with affirmative action. But now the question is that, because the society has progressed and transgressed, so should we not look into the reforms on reservation policy, right? Because possibly it has not served the benefit, right? It is not, properly targeted, correct? So therefore the article talks about the relook into the positive discrimination by the state, which we call affirmative action. Guys, we know Article 14, very important for you, for all the students here, has two elements: equality before law and equal protection of laws. Equality before law is your rule of law, which we borrowed from UK, United Kingdom, and equal protection of laws is we borrowed from United States of America. Equal protection of laws says that you should have same laws for equally located, similarly located people, right? For example, you have 8 lakh as a ceiling for OBC reservation, right? That means those in OBC community who are earning less than 8 lakh per annum would be given reservation, and those who are earning beyond 8 lakh per annum won't be given reservation, right? So that means you are having two standards operating in the same community, right? And this is called as equal protection of laws. So Article 14, or right to equality, in India have two elements: equality before law and equal protection of laws. I hope this understanding is very, very clear. Now we'll try to understand this article. It says that the reservation for the backward classes were not an exception but an extension of principle of equality under Article 15, Clause 1 of the Constitution. Now this is something which was being said by the Supreme Court, when they upheld the 27% OBC quota for all India quota seats in NEET examination, right? However, still they say that there are widespread inequalities in educational facilities, freedom to pursue such education, and social prejudices, right? Inherited cultural capital, right, which actually favors the students from so-called higher class. So positive discrimination is definitely a very controversial topic, but at the same time, when we talk about the casteless society, right, where every person should be placed equally, guys, right? Correct. Casteless society must not have such affirmative actions. On the other hand, individuals who belong to the lower caste must retain their caste identity in order to claim the benefits of such measures, right? Now, even though the data concerning the SC/ST have been included in the census, there is no similar data on OBC. The point I am raising here is that The last caste based census in India was held in the year 1931 during British colonial times, right? And it uses the SC, ST and OBC data, correct? Now post and even when Mandal Commission, which actually surveyed the population of OBC and found that there are 27% OBC population in India. So this data was also from 1931 census, which was the last caste based census, guys, in India. Although there were censuses based on caste, for example, socio-economic castes census of the year 2011. However, it has been, the government says that it is flawed. It is flawed and it is biased, and the SC ST population is documented definitely, but is not used by the government. So the article says that although we do have the data concerning the SC ST, and they have been included in the census, there is no similar data on OBC, right? So therefore the author talks about a new census which must come up with a figure of OBC in order to have a clear picture of the reservation policy in India, right? I hope you are getting my point. Now moving to the next slide. This last month, the Supreme Court upheld the 27% quota for the OBC in the NEET examination, and this is all about the same which I was explaining, because there is caste and class politics ruling our country. So therefore, the reservation policy must be looked upon. And although the Supreme Court has earlier struck down the reservation for Maratha community in Maharashtra, because they were being asking for 16% reservation up and above 50%, and it was in the breach of Indira Savne case, right, of 1992, where the Supreme Court set the reservation limit to 50%, right? At the same time, it also said that, while the judgment also said that when more people aspire for backwardness instead of forwardness, the country itself stagnates, and this situation is not in accord with the constitutional objectives. When every individual want to include himself or herself into the reservation category, then definitely if we are aspiring for backwardness and not forwardness, then definitely we would never be able to fulfill our constitutional objectives, right? So the data that I have just mentioned, the socio-economic caste based census in 2011, has been called faulty, unreliable. It is only documented and is not being used. The Mandal Commission took the data of 1931 census, right? So it has been held that there must be periodic review by a permanent body, and even the National Commission for Backward Classes, guys, which was National Commission for Backward Classes Act of 1993, provided under Section 11 that the central government may every 10 years revise the list with a review to exclude those classes which have ceased to be backward and include the new backward classes. But sadly, the government has not done it any changes in the reservation, still there, right? So as you can see, it's flawed, it's not usable, and there is a clear shadow of caste and class politics in India, and this provides the current divide in our society. As Gandhi was always against reservation, he was against the separate electorates, right? He said once that if we'll give the separate electorates and the reservation, the society would always be divided, and the untouchables, so-called untouchables, would always remain untouchables in perpetuity, right? So there, and rightly so, this has been seen in our country. And although Ambedkar was more keen on reservation policy, right? So today definitely we do need a overlook at the reservation policy, which is a tool of affirmative, one of the tool of in affirmative action, right? So that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session. Wish you all the best. I'm your educator Prithviraj Singh, signing off. Good day, goodbye.